Welcome to the Public Sector Show by Tech Tables. Super excited to have you all on the show. Chuck, we'll start off with you. Quick intro.
Chuck Boyer, City of Phoenix. I'm the Assistant Chief Information Officer over Business Operations. So my team runs the help desk, the public safety radio network for Maricopa County, the router switching, data center, telecom, all those components for the City of Phoenix.
Are you the best looking gentleman on the staff?
I feel like I am.
I love that. The bow tie, and that's U of A, right?
That's U of A bow tie.
And it's a true bow tie, too. I want to be absolutely clear. That is a real bow tie.
And I'm sorry, I'm laughing because we also have another good looking gentleman. We're going to get to Nick, but yeah, just give us a quick intro, Scott.
Scott Magerfleisch. I'm a executive counselor with Infotech. I've been with Infotech almost 5 years. And prior to that was a CIO for the city of Greeley, Colorado. Then prior to that, director of IT for the city of Thornton, Colorado. So spent almost 18 years in the public sector before I joined Infotech, but love working with organizations like these. And Nick and I have a history together, a good one. Yeah.
I love it. Nick, you are also a good looking guy.
Just not quite. My threads don't live up to what I've got next to me.
I mean, neither. I'm wearing a giant orange sweatshirt.
Everyone knows where you are.
Yeah, that's fair. Give us a quick intro.
Yeah, Nick Phillips. I work for the city of Boise. I'm a senior cyber analyst. My team and I, we do cybersecurity for the entire city. So that covers airports, sewer, police, fire, parks, everything. It's a busy job.
Yeah, we're going to unpack that busy job today. Something I do like we were talking about is the people, process, and technology. It starts with people, right? I talk about this on the podcast. I coach high school basketball. And if you can't get the culture, the buy-in from the players, the process, and in this case, the process and technology, it can just be really tough. Unpack the people piece for you. What does it mean to you at the City of Phoenix?
Yes, so I think Jim Collins, good to great. You got to get the right people in the right spots on the bus, right? So you got to make sure that you're hiring in good fits for the organization. I believe firmly that you hire for fit and you train for skill. And technology, it's a little bit of a misnomer because they have to have some of those skills up front. We're not training people up from scratch. But on the other hand, we have to make sure that they're going to get along with the team. They're going to get along with the rest of the organization. I believe in customer service and IT actually over tech skills because we are a service organization, right? We exist to enable the organization through technology, and that all starts with good people.
Yeah, and I think too, like we talk about this on the podcast where, I'll say it sounds really easy to say that, right? But leadership is like really hard. It's hard to lead people and high schoolers. I say it's easier for high schoolers. They're more teachable, I would say, than some adults I know. And what you were talking about before was the Lean Sigma black belt. Before I jump on, I did want to dive into that a little bit. How does that help frame your lens, especially with the leadership and the communication for both the service that you're providing in the IT department and really just across the city because it's a very large city?
Yeah, so just a little bit of history. I got into Lean Six Sigma back when I worked for a medical device manufacturing company, and they were just embarking on their lean journey. And so this was in the late 90s, and I got the opportunity to go through Greenbelt training then and just saw how it really transformed that organization. Through my career, other organizations has also went on their lean journey. So it was really big in hospitals. And so I had many opportunities to learn the skills and practice the skills. When I was at the town of Oro Valley, my boss at the time, the town manager, was really interested in implementing a process improvement program. And we decided to go in the direction of lean. And she asked me if I would lead the program. And so I said, okay, that's probably the time that I get serious about this and get some certifications. And so we're talking a span of over 20 years that I've been practicing these skills and have been retrained and tied into the community. So I got the certifications and really kicked off the program. What I think it does is the premise of lean is really to create value through eliminating waste. And so everything that we do, again, as a service organization is how are we creating value to that organization? If I'm doing something that's not creating value for the organization I'm supporting, then that's waste in itself. We're doing something that's not serving a purpose for the goals of the organization. So how do you define that? How do you frame that up? How do you implement it? How do you make it happen?
That's really good. So Scott, you have the history that you were talking about with in Thornton and being on that side of the house. And now you're outside of it. And so I think I'm just curious, you've got a lot of resources at your disposal at Infotech. How do you help customers like the city of Phoenix or like Boise and the many others across the country? How do you help them when you're advising, especially you're not providing that necessarily that technical solution like a product company would? Talk about how you advise folks, especially on the people side,
Sure. A great example is I have a member right now that they are going through a transition from a leadership perspective. So they had a director and that director has left and then they've got somebody else that stepped in and they really want to focus on their culture. And so we talk about people, and I wholeheartedly agree with you that it is people's got to be first in that regard. And I'm a big proponent of things like that, whether it's Lean Six Sigma or you want to go through another brand. I'm a big fan of the speed of trust from the Franklin Covey group and actually implemented that methodology and that culture when I was at Thornton and really saw the benefit of that. And so the organization I'm working with now, that's what they're doing. And so what I'm able to do is lean in not only as a counselor that's supporting them, but also my expertise from doing the speed of trust as a culture mindset for over a decade and help them go to implement it and having those conversations with leaders and being really raw and honest with them and go, look, whether it's Six Sigma or speed of trust or whatever you're going to do, it's like, you've got to walk the walk and you've got to talk the talk and you have to be able to do this better than everybody else on your team. And it starts with you. The accountability starts with you as a leader. If you're not going to do that, but you ask your team to do it, it's going to fail miserably and it's a waste of time. And so really helping them understand, especially newer leaders that are trying to get into it and do that, it's like, how do you want to do this? And thankfully, a lot of us have done this well in the past and we know what it takes to work, but we really know what it takes to fail. And just guiding them and making sure that they understand the journey you're about to go on can be amazing. But you've got to do it right and you've got to start right. And are you willing to do that? And I think just making that big eyes and that head up moment of talking to an individual and helping them understand that what you're asking your team to do can be beautiful. But if you're not going to do it and lead in a way that shows I am going to do this first and foremost, then nobody's going to believe you. And it's another one of those failed efforts from a leadership perspective. We read another leadership book and now we move on. So really being honest with them and helping them with that regard. And then what tools do you need to be successful?
Yeah, I like the being honest because a lot of folks, they'll read a book and it's easy to say it. It's just like much harder to do. When I say I'm a high school basketball coach, it doesn't encapsulate the half the team's parents hate me because I don't play their son and all of the little details of nuance that go into that. But I think exactly what you were saying is you can go through and it's a little bit like running a business, but it's until you sit in that seat and start to understand like, oh, okay, this is really tough. And I think I found too, there are folks on LinkedIn who will say, who are CIOs and it's leader, mentor, whatever. And then I will see how they treat me. They might not know who I am initially. And I go, oh, okay, that's a miss. You can't do that as a leader. Or I'll hear from their team members. And so there's this disconnect. So there's a gap there between what you think and like the reality, like what's going on with the team, right? And now you're never going to please everybody, so you can take it with a grain of salt. But I do think it is a very interesting piece because the leadership piece, and it's actually not on any of the top 10. If you look at organizations that publish priorities, it's like cybersecurity, AI. Leadership is never on there. The closest you get is maybe workforce development. But I think leadership should be number one. I think it's just, the most important. And like the story I always tell on the podcast is, and then we'll jump to you, Nick, is I had this several years, I've had the team and they might start out losing. And then the same team, we can coach, we can develop, they change and they can start winning. And I thought, interesting. They're the same team. How is that? They start to buy in, they start to communicate, turnovers go down, trust goes up, right? And I learned over that where it was like, oh, interesting. And then a lot of the conversation started to change when we would do what are called van rides, when we would go on the road. We packed the high schoolers in the van rides. And then I remember telling this, and a friend of mine who now just transitioned out of the city of Seattle, Rob Lloyd, he go, I'm never getting in a van with you and going anywhere. I'm like, okay, yeah, but the high schoolers are. But I think adults should have van rides. It would build. And so like, where does the community for the team get built? For the high schoolers, it's at Cane's, at Chick-fil-A, all these kind of restaurants. All that to say, it's before you can get to the process and technology, building that trust. So yeah, I'd love to hear, Nick, I'd love to hear from you. How long have you been, give us the lay of the land of Boise. How long have you been there?
Yeah, I am one of the few born and raised Boiseans. We're a dying breed, as it were. Boise is a very popular place to move to. But yeah, I've been there my whole life, and I've been with the city for just over 18 years, almost 19 years actually in June. And man, I got to say, like, being able to work for the city you live in, so rewarding. I got tired. I was laid off at a job that I had spent a good amount of time in before that, and it was all about to make money. I got laid off in a conference room like we're sitting in right now over a phone call. It's the last thing I wanted to do ever again. Luckily, the city. But yeah, it's been a great ride.
Hopefully this conference room doesn't give you negative feelings.
If conference rooms gave me negative feelings, I wouldn't get a lot of work done.
Okay, so we're gonna go a little bit deeper. We didn't get a chance to talk, but he told me a little bit. Scott told me a little bit about the disaster recovery process. So I actually recently recorded an episode on specifically the state of Nevada. They had their cyber attack.
Yep.
When that gets released, we'll link that in the show notes. And great podcast. But I'd love to hear from you. How did you engage with Infotech, and what does that look like on the cyber side?
Our infrastructure team was one that initially engaged Infotech on this. They wanted to put together a real disaster recovery plan. It was something we said, yeah, we know what to do. And we've had some events, nothing major, luckily, but they wanted to make sure that we actually had a full and documented process. We knew we couldn't do it ourselves. We just did not have the capacity and the knowledge to make it and do it right. And that's something you need to do right. So they brought in Infotech. And then at that point, they brought in the cybersecurity team, because obviously we have a lot to play in that. Cybersecurity, we care about CIA and availability. That's 1/3 of my job, right? They brought me in to make sure that all those things were covered. I was asking about, how access to it, who can restore, where does it live? Are we deciding to encrypt at rest? Is any of it in the cloud? Are we keeping it all here? All these questions, you just hammer them left and right. The infrastructure teams, we're backing it up. We're doing all the things we have to do. I'm like, yeah, okay. And I trust you. I believe in you. I got some boxes to check too. So and then we sat down into the process, and they brought in some teams, and we had 4 days, 3.5 long days of just sitting down with our IT staff, not the business, just the IT staff, to make sure that we basically have the right foundation for doing it for real. So,
what was the biggest takeaway that you took personally?
Oh, for mine, because I preach this sort of stuff all the time, being resilient, being able to recover, testing backups, doing all this stuff. My biggest takeaway was definitely seeing the aha moments from like our application owners and leadership staff within the IT team. Even our infrastructure manager, who was like, I know we have to do this. I think even he began to realize, like, this is so much bigger than just restoring from backup. Having a DR plan. The business has a coop, right? I got that continuity of operations, but we still have to be the ones to bring stuff back up. And even he was like, there's a lot to this. And the cyber team, we saw flaws in how we think about runbooks and tabletops. There's far more to it when you start thinking about it in a more holistic fashion that a true disaster has.
Was there a particular playbook that you thought was like really good?
Unfortunately, when they were running through a lot of the tabletop exercises and building some of the initial ones, because we didn't do all of it. We have 200 and some like server-based apps. We did 15, right? That's a small portion. We have a lot of work yet to do. I was actually at the Idaho State's ITRG conference when they were building a lot of those. So I was like in between one conference and doing DR stuff at the same time. So I actually didn't get to participate in the building of any of their playbooks, which is a little bit unfortunate. So I can't tell you.
We got to go find that person.
But I think it's something that you guys identified and then realized that we've got to build this out and we've got to ensure that it's right and that there's time and effort and energy that's going to go into it. And are we going to commit to do it and make it right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And there was a lot of buy-in from the different teams in there. Oh, we realized that we thought we had playbooks. I don't think we truly did. In fact, I know we didn't. Because when you define it properly, those playbooks, anyone can use. We had so much institutional knowledge. We've got, I don't know how all cities operate. We have a lot of people who've been there a long time. They just operate, man. They kick butt. They know what to do, but they don't write it down. And if Joe was on vacation and Bob was homesick, meanwhile, everything's up in flames, there's no way we could have actually followed any sort of step-by-step plan to recover. But we didn't have that. Now we will.
Yeah, that's great. So we're now going to make the assumption that we've got the leadership component right. The leadership's good. So now we start to dive in. And so Chuck, city of Phoenix, pretty big city, pretty large city. Love to hear from you just first, like what's the 30,000 foot overview, especially from the IT perspective in, what are we at, almost mid 2026? What's the lay of the land right now?
From which perspective? There's so much going on, right? So from an infrastructure perspective, a DR perspective, applications, AI, we have our fingers in everything.
I think you just give us a broad stroke of where is the city of Phoenix heading? Like what projects are important to the city of Phoenix? I think that kind of flavor of it. So CIOs and other folks can go, oh, okay, that resonates with me.
So I think like a lot of us, we have a lot of technical debt, a lot of legacy systems. And so there's a lot of effort in how do we get those upgraded. Luckily, we have a very strong network infrastructure and that we're able to build upon. We're not suffering outages related to networks. We're looking at next generation. What is our next generation of networking? Do we want to keep with the traditional routing protocols, virtual circuits, those types of things, or we wanted to move into a software-defined type of networking. Does that make sense at this point in time? What's the pros and cons behind that? Applications point of view, again, a lot of technical debt, a lot of legacy ones out there. How do we improve upon those? What are the right next systems that we need to be looking at while maintaining the momentum on the systems and the projects that are ongoing that are providing all those services, right? For example, our permitting department, a huge touch point to our citizens. There's a lot of effort right now in upgrading that. And they've been doing that journey for a few years now. So the consumer side is pretty solid. They have a great product rolled out. The commercial side, they're working on that. We're taking a heavy look at obviously where we can do AI. We've been a little bit slow rolling out a few things, but we're looking at what makes the most sense for the city. How are we meeting with the business leaders, talking about what are their ideas, what are their use cases, and how do we build the right model of AI to roll out? Right now, we're getting a lot of onesie, twosie, one-offs that are built into solutions, but how do we bring that all in, and how do we stay ahead of the AI needs for the organization?
That's great. So there's a couple of things I'm going to unpack. So first, the technical debt. So what does that mean across the city of Phoenix? Is there like one business that maybe has more, or is there a certain focus or priority?
Yeah, I don't think this is exclusive to the city of Phoenix. I think you get various applications that have a need that for whatever reason are not kept up to date. And so therefore they need to ride legacy technology, right? And so if you're and I'm not saying we're in this position, but if you're in the unfortunate position where it's that server or that operating system that is on that server and that server is aging out, like how do we manage that, right? How do we get ahead of that? Where's the focus on putting our arms around that and measuring what that is? A lot of these is, do you have organizational will to make a change? Some of these are heavy systems. Our finance system, for example, they're keeping it up to date, but I think in some organizations, there's definitely newer products out there that may do a better job, maybe easier for the end users to use, but the finance team may not be interested in updating that. And so how do we as IT protect it, maintain it, keep it up to date? Those are some challenges. Yeah.
Okay, so you said something I really liked. You said organizational will.
Yes.
So where does that come from?
That's the organization. What's their willingness to make the change? So they have their comfort level, their training, their focus areas, right? To change an ERP system or just even a finance system is a huge lift. And that is very disruptive. And it's not just a matter of bringing it in. I think a lot of folks would like to sell you that way, that, hey, you can just bring it in, we can just port your data over and make things go on. I don't know. I've been through a number of ERP implementations and inevitably it's, this is the time that we're going to redo the chart of accounts, or this is the time that we're now going to revamp our AR process. And it turns into a beast so fast. So I think if you don't have the leaders in place that are willing to do that, or the organization will in place to say, we're willing to make this change, are we going to drive it? Or are we going to maintain it? And again, I've said a couple of times, IT as a support organization, we're there to support the needs of the business. We're definitely there from a risk perspective, cybersecurity perspective. Here's the challenges of staying on this system, but the organization needs to make the decision.
Yeah. So the reason why I was highlighting the organizational will is that's not a technology piece. And
it's a people thing.
Yeah. And I just really like how you said that, because a lot of times the answer is no. We don't actually have the organizational will to do it, which brings me to AI. And so everyone says we want AI, but no one asks, like, what does that mean? Do we have the organizational will? Yeah, we want AI. What does your data look like? I don't know if we actually have the will. I'll let you take a break. This is really good. I really liked, and I think my last comment that you had mentioned too about the ERP finance system, everything I feel like I do for my business is like somewhat in public sector, and the scale is drastically smaller. And so like my entire accounting operation is housed in basically a now garden system where it's all walled and it's just controlled. And I'm like, no, I do not want that. It doesn't integrate with anything. This is becoming a huge problem. So I'm trying to redo my chart of accounts, reconcile transactions into QuickBooks. And I was asking myself, do I have the organizational will to do this? So I have the organizational will. It's brutally painful to do that. But can I think about the whole operation? What am I trying to solve? I want clarity on my business, right? And on the customers I'm serving. And ultimately that gets reflected in the financial statements. And so anyways, going back to the organizational, I really like that term. I'm going to use that a lot now. So Scott, jumping over to you in the term of organizational will, you're working with a lot of different local governments. And I'm thinking AI. I don't know if IT is maybe quite ready yet. I think there are a lot of like AI governance boards, less execution. And part of that reason, and it can be no fault to IT, there's political considerations, dynamics, but it's getting to the point now where I'm seeing leaders, it could be city managers, mayors, they want AI. And now the leaders are in a tough spot right now, because if you're not ready to go, if your data is not good. So how are you advising clients right now?
So one of the biggest ways is whenever that situation comes up, I ask, okay, what problem are we trying to solve? Or what is the opportunity we're trying to take advantage of? And I think both of those are very clean asks, but we can't do AI for the sake of AI. What does it benefit you? And how can you leverage and utilize that at an organizational level, either to benefit your staff or to benefit the constituents that you're working with? And one of the organizations that I work with, they've got this big AI initiative, and they're like, we're going to do AI. And it's, what do you want to do AI with? And so we started small. So we started looking at what are some potential use cases for the business. And this was a transit organization. And they were like, we want to use AI to do better so that somebody can say, I want to go from here to there. And we're going to use a large language model to give them all the different methods of transportation that they could use from a public perspective and get them there. And so it might be, you've got to take a train from here to there, but then you can get off the train and you can get at this bus stop and get you to the point. And then you get on another train and now you're at the airport kind of thing. And that was really well approved and appreciated and received. The problem became, we have to test it inside first, because the thing with AI deployments, and I'm sure you guys have seen the exact same thing, the moment that it's wrong, then you lose trust with the constituents in the organization. And so what I try and advise them to do is you start small, you make sure your data is right, you've got good data governance, you've cleaned your data, you've made sure it's appropriate, and then you test internally in the organization. And maybe it's going to be an external facing component, but how do we test inside the organization first to make sure it's right? Because we don't want to roll something out and do, like happened in Australia, where there's a great big report that goes out and it was written by AI and it totally hallucinated half of a dozen of the references that were in the report. You don't want that to happen. And so how do you avoid that? And you've got to test, you've got to verify, you've got to work through it. And so it starts small, start specific, use a focused approach, and don't just go big bang and run with everything, because we've seen that happen. And now there's no standardization. Now there's no understanding of what we're doing and what we're not. And having the policies around is great, but start small, but do something. Find a good approach to run with and find a business case that's going to help benefit you, your organization, and the constituents you serve.
So one of the questions that I've been asking CIOs, probably the most popular response I've gotten was like, hey, Joe, we want to know about the messy, ugly AI. Like, everyone seems like on LinkedIn and every CIO is doing great.
We saw a great real world example of the messiness of AI with the Mythos preview breach. We saw systems that most people in the IT world thought had been hardened and secured and were ready to go for decades, that within a matter of minutes, Mythos Preview was able to find a vulnerability and absolutely destroy the faith in that product. And so that right there it's the super intelligence capabilities that AI brings into the environment that creates a level of uncertainty that we're not prepared to navigate around. We just don't have the abilities as humans to do anything about it. If you've got an AI LLM that's able to run through a million different iterations of a potential zero-day vulnerability and how to attack that, how do you defend against that? Unless you've got a similar product in your back pocket that you can use against it that's playing red team, blue team. And most governments don't have that ability. They don't have that option. That's really the scary part about what's coming and what we're going to start seeing in the next few months.
You were talking about start small. I'm thinking about what's an easy, quick win. Again, that sounds like very easy, but like the more I've talked with people offline, the more I've understood that there are so many political considerations and risk in public sector. An easy one is like an AI note taker, but that potentially for a lot of folks exposes you to public records requests. And so like I was curious, what is a quick win? And so something I thought about like all these cities have these public hearings. Surely that's got to be an easy way of taking thousands of hours of transcripts.
You absolutely could. Another one that I think is great, especially in the public sector, is you take all your HR, your finance, and your IT policies and you put them in your LLM. Let it answer all of the policy questions that come from the organization, whether it's technology or finance, and make it it's objective, which is great. And just say, you want to know how to buy something? You can ask this model and let it ask, and then it will give you those. What I also say is you've got to have a little bit of a man in the middle to go through that, because what we're finding is there could be previous decisions that were made around either IT or finance or HR policies that maybe weren't directly in line with what the LLM is going to come back with. It might be slightly different than what a previous decision was. And so do you add that man in the middle to say you can give an answer, but it can't contradict an answer that's already been provided unless there's some change that has happened between the last time that answer was given, whether it's a purchasing decision or an HR decision. Use it for that. Let people ask questions that would normally go to your HR, your finance, or your IT help desk and say, use that. For me, that's an easy win. And then you can start to build trust and credibility in the organization with the tool that you're using. And then you have opportunities to expand inside and outside the organization.
And if I can jump in, you both hit on something that we're actually working on, is where we are working on using that public data, all the meetings data, all the minutes, all the agendas, resolutions, and putting an LLM to that so that we can start to answer those questions out of there, not only for internal staff, but for external folks. Because people all the time are trying to backtrack. How did we get to where the decision points up to there? This will save a lot of time for both council, internal staff, and the public.
And just to jump in on to reinforce that, I've got a member, they've been working on that. And one of the concepts is to be able to do something that is almost in real time with their elected officials. Imagine having an LLM that is tied to all of your previous council meetings that have ever taken place and all the data in it. And if somebody comes up and asks a council member, why did you guys do X? Wouldn't it be fantastic to get that LLM to almost immediately prompt it based on a question that a constituent asked? You could go back to 7 years ago on this day, council was read into ordinance this specific event. The vote was 5-2, and the individuals, we moved forward on that. And that's where we got. Those are going to be great opportunities for the speed of adoption in public hearings and things like that. So
I'll be surprised on the responsiveness of the government. That would be a shocker, right?
Yeah, think about that.
Answers.
You ask, and all of a sudden, within 2 minutes, somebody can go, yeah, this is when we did it, and this is why, and this is how, and here's the record, and here's the reference point to when that took place.
So I had a recent interview with the CIO for the city of Boston, and actually I just pulled that up right here. They just released Ask Boston. But what I thought was really interesting was Santi talked about all of the data that they were able to pull in and the actual integrations. The reason why I thought it was actually really impressive, it was more than, we just have this random chatbot. He had actual meat to what he was working on. I had some other CIOs. I give them a hard time off camera, but I'll be like, hey, tell me about your AI journey. And they're like, I set up a note taker. And I get offline. I'm like, dude, you got to give me more than that. I set up a note taker 2 years ago. You got to give me something more. So I thought what Santi was doing with the city of Boston, he's really like product focused. And so I was like, okay, this is really good. And there are so many like endless use cases if you can really get the data right. But before we jump back to Nick, something I was thinking about was engaging the business. A city that's, I think, comparable to Phoenix would be the city of Houston. And I've got a lot of great relationships there with folks. And Lisa Kent, who's the CIO over there, they set up like fusion teams to just cut down on, here's Chuck, but then to get to the people who are actually working over here, there's like just a whole crew of people. And curious around in the essence of wanting to be lean and cut the waste, how are you getting out to the businesses throughout the city of Phoenix to really understand, hey, what are those challenges? What are those business problems? Yeah, I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, so to be honest, I think there is a challenge there. So we do have a BRM program that does regular meetings with the department leadership. Obviously, my boss, the CIO, meets with all the department directors and communicates and with mayor and council, and they're always asking for information. But it's not always top of mind when you have that once in a while meeting with folks. So we've been getting more involved. The assistant CIOs have been getting more involved in those meetings. We just have to create a lot of those touch points. And what we want to do is create that environment and that trust that they come to us with the technology solutions and say, hey, we're considering doing this. Right? What do we need to do to get this in the organization? And how can we be business friendly to be able to accommodate those requests? So yeah, that is definitely an ongoing challenge. And through my municipal career in multiple municipalities, it's been a challenge in every one, is building that trust and that rapport with the business units to get them to bring those solutions to you. Building it up, you have to go ask. You have to constantly ask. You have to not get tired of asking, what's on the horizon? What do you need help with? What can we help you with? You have to keep asking those questions.
Yeah. And it's hard, right? Because you're working with other people have different personalities. Anytime there's different personalities. If you talk to me and I ran a business, you'd be like, wow, Joe gives me everything. He's just dumping stuff, right? And then you talk to other people, it's a lot harder. You're like fishing, right? You're trying to figure out like that. So Nick, who else were we at dinner with last night? Product Plan. That's a free shout out. But I was more talking about the BRM side.
Erica.
The Erica.
Yeah. Speaking of BRMs, man, so we have a BRM program at City of Boise as well, which I think it's still a growing representation within government. I have no idea about the private sector, but we have long had the same struggle, right? Making sure the business wants to talk to IT and we get to them before they purchase a product, right? Because it's always implement this. Well, we didn't vet any of this. So with Erica and the rest of her team, they sit down and have regularly cadence meetings with them, go through and say, where are your pain points? What do you need? What can we help you with? We want to partner with the departments. They're our customer, but we don't want to be just a ticket taker, right? They don't want to come in line and no one likes to wait, right? No one likes to wait. So having a BRM, that business relationship manager, to show them that attention, that love, tender care has been so immensely helpful. It's from all the way from the ground up, right? Even just like basic change management requests, right? Now we have someone who says, oh, IT needs to fix something on your server. And when's the best time? We already have a BRM who sit there and can talk to them and knows exactly when that's going to be. So when we need to go take down servers and do real work, or we have a cyber incident, I know someone who knows exactly the person to talk to, right? Even though we already have it documented and it's all there, but sometimes someone with that personal touch really does help. A BRM doesn't have to be a technical person, right? And I think it's important things to note. Like IT people, there are roles within IT that are not technical, right? There is that person-to-person experience that I like people. I much prefer a computer, but that's great. But there are people like Erica and the rest of her team that are fabulous at the job. And we really put a big emphasis on that within IT over the last 2 years and got her team fleshed out. It's only 4 of them for all of our departments, which kind of seems like a lot to me, but there's also the reality of funding, et cetera. We have FTEs that are needed everywhere, but they're definitely making life easier within IT with that whole ideation and onboarding of new applications, and then downstream as well, right? It's not all upstream because it is a partnership. We work both ways with our departments. We let them know things. They ask us a lot of questions.
So on the cybersecurity side, like what you just said, that you're like, okay, not all roles are technical, right? Mm-hmm. And like cyber, I think one that gets swept under the rug a little bit. There's a push on the technical side, which I totally get for cyber and is very valuable. There is also like a training component and like an awareness component of, it sounds really easy, but it's don't click that link, don't do that. And people do it all the time. It's crazy. I host the podcast and it's funny because on an everyday basis, most people in America are not thinking like this. Not, oh, I'm about to get attacked. What are you talking about? Why are you so scared? If you only knew the world of people that I talk to. But yeah, I'd love to hear, do you have a workforce program or anyone set up where you are training on the cyber side?
Yeah, we have a lot that we do. We could do certainly a lot more. We have an awareness training program. Probably everyone does. We do the phishing tests, 30-minute, 1 hour long training sessions. What we don't have is a real formal, at least on the cyber side, formal training program of awareness where we go down individually and talk to people. I've absolutely done it. We had an incident in our public works department where somebody did something really stupid, right? People do stupid things all the time. Didn't involve any bad things that happened. There was no negative repercussions to the city, except that HR got involved and said, why are people doing this? And why are they even allowed to? IT tools were allowing them to do something. I'm not going to go through the details of it, but then Public Works came and said, hey, cyber team, could you maybe educate our folks on why the thing that happened was bad? Like, love to. These sort of outreach moments are perfect. You have proper intent. You know exactly what you're going to get out of it. So some of the folks that are forced to go were forced to go and just sat there. But honestly, we got a lot of engagement out of it. And it was a very specific set of group of people. And they saw the reality of what we thought was funny when we were 18 or 19. When done in an enterprise environment is very unfunny, especially when it has goals. And we've done outreach with like our library department. They say, hey, can you give us a bunch of stuff for cyber awareness? I'm like, heck yeah, I'd love to. So we prepare a bunch of documents for them and let them do their thing and stuff like that. But there's a lot of work left to do. And if I only had more time, I would love to do a lot more. I don't have a problem talking with people, even though I do like computers. I actually enjoy educating. talking to people about the glory that is.
When you talk about fishing, do you ever have a bag of Swedish fish? And if people do, you start throwing at them?
No, that would be great though. That would be wonderful. We do actually have challenge coins that we award to people who are doing good, not just like fishing, but also just about, hey, somebody like noticed something and rose up the red flag. And our team, as these happen throughout the year. So like we had our deputy director of finance crushes phishing emails. Like he has reported 0 false positives, which is amazing. There's no one else in the entire city of Boise who actively reports phishing emails, who doesn't also like occasionally send spam or something like that. I go through and I review them all. And anyway, the guy is a master. And it's the fact that he's in finance makes it that much more amazing because those guys get hit nonstop. I've seen the emails he gets fished with. I'm like, good job. And he never reports a false one. That's great. So yeah, he got a coin. You know it.
You know what it makes me think about is like back in the day when I was younger, like I remember going on Craigslist and selling stuff. And I remember the send me money and some foreign country. And I was like, man, these are so bad. This is crazy. But then I would meet people like my mom who would fall for it. I'm like, Mom, what are you doing? No. But then now it's like really sophisticated where I get these emails and I'm thinking, I got to be very careful because the phishing one, they're so good. It's crazy, but that's the world that we're getting into. And so anyways, I think the education piece is massive.
And we use those. Like our last 2 times we've been hit, because everyone gets hit in phishing and whatnot. We've lost money because of these emails. If it wasn't a direct phishing thing, it was always a compromised business, right? Someone we do business with. They get in the email chain, they read everything, and they send that next email in reply to the past ones that you've been talking to. Oh, could you change the ACH information for that for me? Sure. Yeah. They were just in conversation. Like they just emailed like 20 minutes ago, if that, or a day ago, whatever it took. It's scary, but that's what processes are about, right? You should never pay. You should never change like a payment information without first confirming over the phone with your business partner. You get nailed by it, you learn, it becomes a training moment, you move on.
There was a city in Colorado about 4 years ago that actually had that exact same thing happen to them. They had another business get compromised and they reached out and said, hey, we've had to change banks because of whatever else. Please change this information and our invoices will still come to you. Everything's fine. This is just a new routing and account number. And the finance folks didn't follow procedure. And it looked legitimate. It seemed legitimate. It came from the legitimate source, but they had compromised the email system of that other account. And it was in the news. It was well over $1 million that got sent out in payment to a contractor for this city. And it was like, wait, where's our money? And they're like, what do you mean we sent it to you? So yeah, those things, they're getting more sophisticated. They're getting better looking and they're taking advantage of people's desire to be helpful.
That's a bummer. That's a real bummer. Talking about WRITA the WRITA conference. We've got the conference chair with us. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Whew. I got the conference chair with us. This was the first kind of big year, right? This is the first one, inaugural. Check as we round out the podcast for folks who don't know what WRITA is. First, explain what WRITA is, what's the vision, and why is this important and something that folks across the Western U.S. should look at.
So Scott's going to get me because I'm sure I won't quote the vision statement verbatim, but WRITA is the Western Regional Innovation Technology Alliance. And the concept behind that was, how do we get a bunch of the government agencies within the states that we have, the 7 states that we have, to be able to communicate at any peer level, right? So from senior leadership, from the CIO level down to the technician level. How do we create those connections for folks to be able to communicate, share experiences, find out what others are doing, be able to learn from other people's lessons that they've had through various elements that they're doing in technology. And we are obviously at our inaugural conference. WRITA's been formed for just 11 months. We haven't quit 1 year or made 1 year yet, and pretty excited about it. So we had a fall conference in Reno last year, getting some of the key leaders together and talking about the vision, what we wanted WRITA to be. And we really wanted it to be that place for communication, that place for connection, that place to be able to offer some amenities such as online trainings, to be able to pull the members for what are the information that they want. So we're building it as we're going along. And we really are intent on listening to our members of what do you want to hear next. I got a lot of good feedback through the conference already so far, things that folks would like to hear. I think we had some great keynotes already today. We have another great keynote tomorrow, some awesome attendance for a first year conference. Yeah. Pretty excited.
No, I think that's really great. I was talking to people. It's funny. I have an event coming up next month. That's my own live podcast tour event. That's at GCU, Grand Canyon University. And I was prepping Scott Kahn for my own event. Like, I'm on a podcast intro call and he's like, hey, you ever heard of WRITA? And I was like, sorry, what? I'm like, no, I've never heard of it. And so then he told me about it and he was like, yeah, here's who's on the advisory board of it, some of the board members. And I started looking at it and I was like, wow, I know Bob Leake and Richard McGatty and Bianca. And I started going through, I was like, okay, this could actually be pretty cool, be pretty fun. And then I was like, yeah, I'll come. And then I got an email back and yeah, this is great. We're so glad to have you. And then like a couple of days later, it was like, oh, can you bring the podcast too? And I was like, no, it's a lot of equipment. All right, you know what?
You'll do it.
Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been great to see a lot of the people collaborating. I think that was the big purpose. I do not just the CIO, but trying to get the teams involved too is super powerful. And I think it's good for a lot of the team members who maybe don't go to all the conferences. Like I think like the CIO, C-suite folks, they're going a lot, but underneath that level, I think it's like a really great learning opportunity for a lot of team members to be able to get out of the office and go, oh, hey, yeah, what is Boise doing right now? I'm only hanging out in Phoenix, right? And so, or what's name the next city?
I've always found that for an event like this and an organization like this, that was one of the things I loved about being in the public sector is that you're not competing with your neighbor. When I was at Thornton, I wasn't competing with Westminster or with Boulder or Arvada to try and gain customers. That isn't how you operate. And so being able to be in a room with a bunch of your peers and they're probably going through similar challenges. And guess what? Great minds getting together can usually solve just about any kind of challenge it comes up with. And so being able to leverage like-minded individuals that are in a different organization, and maybe they've already done it. They've already had to deal with that. And you can learn from those individuals and then they can learn from you. So having that collaborative space and environment in which they can get together, I think it's just amazing. I think it's one of the benefits of working in public sector. You get that peer group that you can work with that you don't really get in many other verticals.
Yeah. And I was thinking about this. I remember when the city of Seattle, their library got hit. And then I was thinking like the lessons learned from that. Everyone in local government has a library. Like,
it's the most treasured piece of the entire thing.
Yeah.
Many people.
Yeah. And so the next question is, there are a lot of cities in Washington that have a library. Like, what lessons can you pass down? What preventative measures can you get out? So Nick, would love to roll on to you. WRITA, first conference. Why did you get involved?
Alex, our CIO, a big proponent of WRITA. She loves everything about it, right? And the ability for us all to meet up is fabulous. And she actually asked the entire IT department, hey, put together some proposals for some sessions. I want to see as many of us there as possible talking and sharing the knowledge. Erica and I both put in sessions and got picked. And I love going to things and visiting other cities and meeting my compatriots because there's enough cybersecurity conferences out there that I don't think that's the niche that needs to be filled. But the general IT is harder, right? That's a lot harder. And we all need to be able to talk to each other and experience that. So I came in, I have a session, it'll be my first session I've ever given. First time speaking in front of my peers. So I'm looking forward to that. Tomorrow, I'm talking all about sieges, which is much like Fight Club. So that'll be great. See if anyone even shows. I could be talking to myself. We'll find out. But yeah, that got me down here. But I love working at conferences with fellow government employees. We all have the same troubles. We all understand each other's pain points and being able to just help out, share, give them a card like, oh, you have a new lasso? Great. If you have any questions, bring them over.
I love it. And I think my kind of final, pitch for WRITA, I have a unique perspective because I actually travel around the country. Most people don't travel around the country. Maybe he does, but I actually travel around the country. I'm interviewing people and I found that like most people in their own state know the people in that state. They hang out in that state. They know. So like in Arizona, because I've been here, I've done the live podcast tour 2 other times. My first one actually was at the Phoenix Hotel Kimpton Palomar across from the Suns. I rented the top suite floor. I accidentally met Richard McGatty that night. He just showed up to this hotel room that I had because one of his workers, when he was at Maricopa County Superior Court, Aaron Judy, he was having a baby, texted me last minute. I was talking to my wife. It was really hard. It was the podcast for my baby. And I just told him, dude, it better be the baby. And then he's like, no worries, my boss is going to show up. I was like, cool, I have no idea who your boss is. And that was the first time I met Rich. And so here we are 4.5 years later, talking about the relationships. But I think a lot of people in Arizona know each other in Arizona. I think a lot of times don't necessarily collaborate with maybe with Bob Leake in Nevada because he's got a voice and a platform. But I think that's probably WRITA coming together a little bit, which is cool, is to see Boise coming together and some of the other cities in California. And I don't even know how far it reaches. Is anyone from Montana here? Is anyone from Montana?
I thought we
great
saw
phone
someone.
numbers.
Yes.
Okay.
I believe we do have in Montana.
I need to find that person. That collaboration across the state
Yeah.
lines, I feel is not as common, which I think is
Especially not in the western part of the U.S. I think as you get further east, you do tend to have those multi-state users group, but I think that's more about geography and things of that nature. There's just states that are closer together there where we don't have it out here.
States are smaller.
You
Yep.
States are a lot
You can
smaller.
take a train to be somewhere else 2 hours. And it takes, what is it? It's 2 hours to get to Oregon or 2 hours to get to Utah or Nevada, but that's not to any city. Boise is the most physically separated metropolitan city in the entire country. We are so far away from everyone else on our own little island out in the desert.
Yeah, if I start out in Southern California and drive north, I'm still there 9 hours later.
Yes,
You
you
know,
are.
it's bigger than many other countries.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go have a great time at the night at the museum. I met people last minute I was talking to in Texas who were like, oh, dude, how do I get involved in WRITA? And I'm like, I don't know. That's a question for Scott. But for folks who are going to tune into this episode, Chuck, I want to give you the closing thought on it. I think I'm going to put positive affirmation out there. In 2027, it might be in Boise, right? I'm just going to throw that out there. Why should someone come to Boise in 2027?
You started with the night at the museum. One of the things that we wanted to do on our inaugural conference is really throw that. We felt like this conference would be so important for driving membership, for driving folks to say, I want to be a part of that. We want people coming away from this event and bragging about it to their peers and saying, you really check out WRITA. Here was the conference. Here's the content. Let's collaborate. Let's get together. We believe in the vision. Night in the museum is cherry on the soda there, on the ice cream cone. And the fact that we didn't want just your typical event venue of we're going to be in a hall. There's going to be tables. There'll be loud dining, someone talking at you the whole time. We really wanted to be an experience. And so as we were walking through the conference committee that could be there, the Mesa Natural History Museum, it was just breathtaking in how this is laid out. And we could envision the various kiosks that folks could be set up at and the conversations that could be happening and just walking around, mingling, building those connections in a great venue with from the dinosaur at the front door to they have a huge waterfall in the center of the facility that is 3 stories tall from tip to bottom. It's just going to be an awesome setting that you don't get to experience at other conferences when you go to them. So.
Well, with that, I'm very excited to see the dinosaur. Thank you for coming on the Public Sector Show by Tech Tables.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Appreciate it.